Thank you. Thank you very much, Mafe. Let me call on our PNAA President, Dr. Gloria Berriones, to welcome everybody.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Pulong number 9. And to all my colleagues across the country, tonight we are going to learn from the experts in the fields who are really the experts. So I welcome each and every one of you, and let's just open our minds and learn and also share this back to our colleagues and to the people around us. So again, thank you to the organizers and to my colleagues again, magandang gabi and maraming salamat and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Berriones. So tonight's webinar is in a panel discussion mode. And tonight we have 4 speakers who are representing the 4 regions of the Philippine Nurses Association of America. And they are representing the Western region, the Eastern region, the South Central region, and the North Central region. First, let me introduce to you Dr. Dennis Flores. Dr. Dennis Flores is an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing. He's a visiting professor at the Center for Research on AIDS at Yale University School of Public Health. His work includes community education and workforce development for around 15,000 nurses across 3 continents. Dr. Flores has served as a national spokesperson for HIV testing campaigns and in his various leadership roles for the Association of Nurses in AIDS Care. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. Our second speaker is Dr. Sigrid Ladores. Dr. Ladores is an associate professor and chair of the Department of Family, Community, and Health Systems, as well as the director of the PhD program at the University of Alabama at Birmingham School of Nursing. She is a PhD-prepared pediatric nurse practitioner and a certified nurse educator who specializes in researching reproductive health issues in adolescents and young adults with chronic illnesses, particularly cystic fibrosis. Dr. Ladores has presented her research findings at local, regional, national, and international conferences and holds the distinction of being a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. Dr. Cora Munoz is a professor emeritus and adjunct professor at Capital University. She is an author, academic scholar, consultant, national and international speaker, Fulbright scholar, diversity trainer, health advocate, and a community worker. Her clinical specialty is psychiatric mental health and transcultural nursing with expertise in cultural competence, education, and teaching nursing. She was the founder of the Philippine Nurses Association of Indiana and the Philippine Nurses Association of Central Ohio. She's currently the president of the Ohio Asian American Health Coalition. Last but not the least, we have Dr. Mila D. Sprouse. Dr. Sprouse is the Chief Nursing Officer at Virginia Mason Medical Center in Seattle. Dr. Sprouse is known for her executive leadership skills in integrating business, financial, and technology interests into cohesive operations. She values diverse viewpoints and incorporates diversity, equity, inclusivity in discussions. Dr. Sprouse has experience in applying the lean methodology in hospital operations and is skilled at delivering effective messaging of the organization's mission, vision, and strategic goals. She has extensive knowledge of the healthcare industry and is actively involved with local, regional, and national associations. My dear panel of speakers, welcome to our webinar. And our audience, thank you for joining us today. And we will go right into the discussion. So you may also type your questions in the chat box and we will have an opportunity to go over those questions with our panel speakers. We have prepared a series of questions which will be the points of discussion for tonight's webinar. So first, I'm going to ask each of our panel speakers to tell us a little bit about their experiences, both as a mentee and now as a mentor. So let's start with Dr. Cora Munoz. Can you tell us about someone who has mentored you, or someone you have connected as a mentee? And how was that for you, Dr. Munoz?
Thank you so much, Manny. And hello, everyone. This is really a wonderful opportunity and a privilege to share with you our experiences in mentoring. For me, I have been mentored and I have served as a mentor. Okay? And there are formal mentoring and there are informal mentoring. I have several nurse mentors through my professional career, but I also have informal mentors. And what I'd like to share with you is someone who mentored me who is not a nurse and really has a very, very great impact in my professional life, my career, as well as my personal life. And she actually is a professor in psychology at The Ohio State University. And she's my mother's friend, so she's older than me. I was a doctoral student, and she took me in as a mentee. No formal acknowledgement, I'm your mentor and you're my mentee, but her interest to me was so palpable, and it just made a big difference in my career, my early career, and as a psychiatric nurse, and throughout my academic, positions. And she actually showed interest in me. And every time we would talk, she would ask me about my scholarship. What are you doing? How are the nurses? What is new in nursing? And she would share with me her own scholarship. And we've done a lot of work together. It was informal. Of course, the literature says the model for formal mentoring really works. But for me personally, it was this particular mentor in an informal relationship where her passion as an academic really touched me. And I learned so much from her. When she was really old and ailing, she selected me and given me the power of attorney for a medical decision. And for me, that was such a privilege. And so until the end of her life, I was supporting her. I was actually caring for her, but I'm forever indebted for that mentoring that she has shown me and has given me in an informal way. But I value all my mentors, but she was special. And she was truly, truly special.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Munoz. It's interesting you share about your experience being a mentee and with your mentor being a very informal relationship. And I believe until we had this P3 program, thank you, Dr. Beriones, and to the executive board of the PNAA for granting us the opportunity to launch this P3 under the leadership of Dr. Sagar and Dr. Warley Remio. We now have a formal nurse mentoring program, which we call the P3, the Patnubay sa Pagtatagumpay program, which is bringing you this webinar tonight. But until we had this, most of the mentoring that was occurring actually among PNA members were very informal. So thank you for sharing that. How about you, Dennis? Could you tell us a little bit about your experiences, both as a mentee and a mentor?
Yeah, sure thing. And thanks as well for the invitation. It's wonderful to hear the genesis of P3, and it's fabulous that we have a formalized mechanism to connect one another. So similar to Dr. Munoz's story, I also would like to give props to start off with a person who really steered me early in my career as a nurse. Her name is Barbara Blake, and she was my community health instructor from Kennesaw State University in Georgia. I actually took my nursing degree. I finished it here in the States after moving from the Philippines. And so it was here in Georgia that I really found my stride in nursing. And in that community health class, exactly, Dr. Ramos, go KSU. So it was in that community health class that I realized that this is an area that I could actually thrive in, and it was the professor in that class who took me in. I really just enjoyed her class, and I was quite enthusiastic throughout that whole undergrad course in 2005. For our required community health class, there was a required volunteer stint for like 4 hours, I think. And my initial project turned into something more massive. I ended up bringing my entire class to participate in AIDS Walk, the annual AIDS Walk at Piedmont Park in Atlanta. But it was because of this mentor who, when I started figuring out that more people wanted to join me and my friends, she didn't say no. She just basically handed over like the keys and allowed me to go big and go crazy with my initial ideas. And so even when I had this crazy idea of asking all of my classmates to email, and email was a little relatively new back then, to email the university president so that we could request to use the university bus, the varsity team bus, to transport us from KSU to the city, to Atlanta. It was not something that was typically done. We bypassed all the regular channels because we were pressed for time. But using that, she just winked at me and she was like, fine, do it. There's a pressure component. And I think that's what a great mentor does, is in some ways they allow you to go and spread your wings and really provide you that platform. And so from that initial AIDS Walk, we kept in touch. She was my biggest cheerleader. And all the way, even after I graduated, I would have lunch with her. I was also the biggest nerd, so, it fostered that relationship. We would hang out. And then, she was giving me guidance on what potential next steps there were, as I started thinking that bedside was wonderful, but I could not sustain working in the bedside. So she explained to me what graduate school was. I didn't even know what a PhD in nursing entailed. So it was this initial person who explained to me patiently that these are the avenues available for a nurse. So I give her props. And actually, sorry, but I'm going to do this. Can you see? That's me and her at an initial conference. Oh, you can't see it. Oh, well. She's around. No power of attorney, though. She's very alive and healthy. So that's where I start off.
Thank you for sharing that, Dennis. How about you, Sigrid? Any stories you want to talk about being both as a mentee or as a mentor?
Well, I've been very fortunate in that. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to the organizers and to the PNAA leaders. And for the P3, certainly coordinators. It's an honor to be part of this panel. So for me, gosh, I have not just one mentor. And I think this is a major message we want to impart to our audience, is that you will need multiple mentors, because not one person is going to be the perfect person to all of your needs. And so for me, I had mentors from my undergraduate years, from my MSN years, and certainly when I pursued my PhD. Major props to some of Dennis's colleagues, actually, who served as my mentors. When I was in the graduate program, I graduated from University of Pennsylvania School of Nursing, both from my bachelor's and my master's. And there they really nurtured you to become a leader and an expert. And so I happened to be fortunate enough to work with folks like Janet Dietrich and Terry Lipman, who are buddies of Dennis, actually. And it's such a special treat because nursing is a small world. And so there's many, many connections to be made. And I think I can say, and this is going to be one of our last questions, but I would say, don't be afraid to ask different people to be your mentors, because the worst that they can say is, well, we don't have time. I don't have time. I have, a lot on my plate right now. But you need to come out of your comfort zone and reach out. Don't be shy about asking. because most likely they will say yes, and they'll be honored to serve as a mentor. So as a mentee, I never shied away from asking different people different things that I need, that I knew I needed to be able to grow in my role. And certainly my very prominent mentor that has really shaped me into an academic leader is a person named Dr. Karen Meneses, and some of you on this call might know her. She was beloved, a nursing researcher who has really made an impact in oncology as a scientist. And she's the one that I emulated and was my role model, and really the reason why I am here at University of Alabama at Birmingham, because she was our Associate Dean for Research. She passed away unexpectedly in 2018, but I'd like to think that I'm carrying on her legacy, because to me, it's really important that I show up and I represent what Filipino Americans can do and all the contributions and recognitions that are really owed to us. So I will stop there because we want to hear from Mila as well.
Yes, thank you, Sigrid. Beautiful story, and of course we do remember Dr. Carmeneses. So Mila, tell us about your story.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. There's really commonality in what everyone has said about mentorship, and I'm going to actually evolve in that commonality. And number one is admiration, right? In the people that mentored us, as well as mentorship is dynamic. And so for me, I've had so many mentors in my personal and professional life. And the one thing that I have learned throughout the years, as well as really trying to share this with everyone as I go through my journey, is that mentorship itself is a journey, and it's a personal responsibility. And we have to extend our reach. And that's what I learned from a lot of my mentors. And that includes, and here we are, members of the Philippine Nurses Association of America, encouraging each other to actually be involved in our community, in associations, because when you increase that reach, it actually opens up a lot of things for all of us. And the fit to be that person, to be a mentor and to be a mentee, has to exist. And that mentee, like for me, I always look for the person that I admire, the person that can nurture me and grow me, and in turn will also reciprocate that from that person. And so it is a journey. It's a personal responsibility, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to looking for a mentor. And so when we say that if we do not have access to mentors, it really is about us looking for those people that can actually mentor us. We have to take that first step to ensure that we have the right person to mentor us. So yeah, so many commonalities, and I'm just repeating what everyone is saying, and I will not single out one mentor, because every part of me is all of them. So yes, that's how I see mentorship.
Thank you, Mila. Now, when we were planning this webinar night, we, of course, intentionally thought that the 4 regions of PNA should be represented. You know, the South Central region, North Central region, Eastern and Western regions. But more importantly, when we were thinking of who to invite, we really thought hard of leaders out there in different organizations in the community who could really talk about mentoring. And so that brings us to our next discussion, which is the question is, what is the importance of diversity in organizational leadership, and how does mentoring relate to it? What is the significance of mentorship in the workplace? So let's start with you again, Mila, since you were the last one to speak. Let's go ahead.
I love that question because it really is the foundation of what we do in a hospital setting. So the importance of diversity in organizational leadership is a critical piece of developing a culture of inclusiveness in the workplace. And my dissertation is actually about diversity. It, first of all, fosters a sense of belongingness and creates an environment where the employees, the nurses, the staff feel respected and valued for their unique contributions. So what does that mean in a hospital setting? It will boost employee morale, satisfaction, engagement. And the beauty about this is that we actually can connect it to all the things we do to keep our patients safe. And in the hospital setting, we're always looking at hospital employee engagement. So the diversity itself, having that landscape embedded in it, really increases that employee engagement. The other piece is that the quality metrics. When you talk about happies, CLABSIs, CODIs, when you have an employee or a group of employees that are engaged because there is so much diversity and inclusiveness in that landscape, that converts into providing the best quality and safe care to our patients. And on a bigger, broader level, that all turns into a financial advantage of running an organization. And of course, again, at the center of this is the patient. And I love this piece in organizational leadership. The diversity itself, inclusivity converts everything into how we can actually have an organization that is going to be sustainable.
Thank you, Dr. Sprouse. Now, let me turn to you, Dr. Munoz. What is the importance of diversity in organizational leadership, and how does mentoring relate to it? What is the significance of mentorship in the workplace?
First, I want to say to Mila that was not my dissertation. However, diversity, cultural competence, equity became my passion. And I have developed my expertise, and through the years, really have learned a lot. And we all know now DEI, and of course, social justice and belongingness is a high priority, right? Corporations, including healthcare systems, and we should really be on top of it as well, right? Why? Because our workforce is becoming diverse. The population of this country, we all know, as we get closer to 2050, will be mostly communities of color. So the patients that we provide care for and those who we educate, provide healthcare education, will be communities of color. Therefore, it's important in any organization to be attentive to diversity and inclusion. And mentoring actually helps in acknowledging that the skill development of individuals, okay, is important because it yields satisfaction and productivity, as Dr. Sprouse has mentioned. But we have to train mentors. We have to train mentors in the organization. I do a lot of training. One of the trainings that I do is emphasizing the importance of the standards of culturally and linguistically appropriate standards that's been developed for many years, right? But this speaks to the organization that to be inclusive, you have to look at your CEO, your administrator, the top board, and all your staff. how diverse are they? You know, because there still are, as we know, institutions where it's still very, Caucasian, white, especially in leadership. And our patients are becoming more diverse, right? This is true in academic.
Yeah.
I retired from a private institution, mostly white students as well as faculty. So our organization needed diversity. So you really need to look at the representation. And when we're working with mentees whom we want to really provide them with guidance to become leaders, they need to have an appreciation and understanding of how diversity must be included. It's now we have a lot of formal mentoring programs because they see that as meeting the needs of the organization to be inclusive, And there's studies showing that diverse and inclusive companies are in fact 36% more profitable than the ones that lack diversity, pointed out by Dr. Sprouse, as far as the cost benefit. And administrators listen to that. But more importantly, when we have diverse workforce who are mentored well, we'll be able to provide culturally competent care. And there's the patient receives care that they need to understand differences and uniqueness in how we provide care. So let me stop at that, Manny.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you bring that up, Dr. Munoz, because indeed we have a lot of work to do as far as diversity and inclusion is concerned. If we look at the leadership, right, the organizational leadership, and in different fields, there's much to be desired as far as bringing inclusion there and diversity. So let me first ask Sigrid first and then Dennis to talk a little bit more about significance of mentoring minorities in academia and research.
Thank you for that question. I think that's a really important question. I straddle both worlds of academia and research. I am a researcher, and I have been in academia for over 20 years. Just to tag on to what Dr. Munoz was saying, that representation is critical. And I just remember walking through the hallways of my institutions that I've been a part of, and they are mostly white, Caucasian people on the walls, touted as, awardee or recipient of this particular recognition. And I wanted to change that. It became a responsibility. As department chair here at UAB, I recognize that it is a big responsibility, and that I wanted to take that on. I was not necessarily looking to be in this position as department chair because it's quite a lot of work. But when I was invited to think about applying, I said, you know what? I have to do this. It is my responsibility. The mentor that I mentioned earlier, Dr. Karen Meneses, I don't think I was very clear in stating that she was Filipina. And she's at the top of her game when she passed away. And so I looked to her and I said, I wanted to be like her. I wanted to do that. And so it's really critical that, if given the opportunity to step up into a leadership position, regardless of whether you're in clinical practice or academia or administration, research, you have to do it. And look at all of our esteemed colleagues on this call. I mean, look at Dr. Brianes, look at Dr. Jurado. I mean, they're at the top of their game, and rightfully so, but it's a climb to get there. And there's sacrifices that need to be made because people are quick to try to take us down because of our minority status. And again, minoritized, we're not just talking about racial and ethnic status, it's all of it. And so there is a responsibility that is given to us to rise up to the occasion.
Thank you, Sigrid. Now, Dennis, you are also in academia and research, but I know that you are also in clinical practice. So would you please share to us significance of mentoring for minorities in the work that you do?
Yes, thank you. My gosh, Dr. Ladores, nakakaiyak naman yun. I really love what everybody else has said. And just to add on, I can't emphasize enough too that, you know, it helps a lot to see successful people who look like you or who have similar backgrounds and are actually in positions of power. We've said this, the simple act of visibility and the mentorship that they might also provide, it communicates to us who are following through, who are joining them in the ranks, all the possibilities that may await us if we, you know, do it the right way. So especially for minoritized individuals like us Pinoys, you know, many of us were the firsts in our families, first to go to school in the US, first to have published, first to have got into a master's or a PhD or whatever it is. And we're very proud of that. But unfortunately, it takes a lot of effort to get to that point of being the first to become this thing. And we typically can't rely on our family to provide us with the guardrails or the tools on how to get from point A to point B, because we are the first, we are the pioneering bunch. But it is those mentors, those few people who have been there, who can provide us with that perspective, right? And so it is from them, you know, unlike folks from majority culture or those in positions of privilege who have come from a long line or at least an established line of academics, who then possess qualifications and experiences and connections. We really don't have that type of institutional memory back home. And so it's up to these mentors to, out of the goodness of their heart, say, okay, this is what you can expect, or this is how it works. They provide us these guideposts. And I think, you know, that's why it works. A good mentorship model works. Now, within research, I just want to point out that with us being at the helm of conducting ethical research, it might actually serve as some type of reassurance for people in our community or other minoritized communities to agree to participate in this enterprise. Because there is a history of distrust or mistrust in taking part of research that had previously, you know, conducted unethical work with them. But if it is us leading the enterprise, then they can have more buy-in with that. And so it's a very important responsibility that we have as Filipino researchers to be cognizant of that, and having mentors that we can rely on, you know, to again make sure that we don't go astray and we're following everything that we need to be doing.
So in the research work that I know, because you also do research work, Dr. Dennis. So are you currently mentoring too other researchers, student researchers?
I do. I think it comes with the territory at some point. They might not explicitly say this in your graduate program or in your PhD program, right? But at some point, the expectation is that you do bring on other more junior folks, whether it be more junior colleagues or students in varying levels of the nursing programs. And so for me, oh wait, was that the question, or am I jumping into?
Yes. No, you're good.
So I can speak more about the role of mentorship within diversity and equity as well, and social justice. So for me, the way it's turned out, mentorship serves a couple of functions. So first, aside from what I mentioned in terms of these people providing critical advice, these mentorship relationship with their mentees, you know, they tell us what to expect down the road. So they can provide anticipatory guidance to these mentees who, through no fault of their own, obviously have never been down that road before. So there's this system, a warning system of sorts, and this engenders trust and a sense of security for the more junior fellows who are coming behind. And so it's this sense of security that then, you know, fosters inclusion and belongingness, because you don't feel like such a stranger. Here's somebody who's holding your hand and trying to pave the way for you, or has paved the way for you. And if you're not operating from a place of insecurity, Then because you have this trusted colleague who forewarns you or exposes you beforehand, you're more prepared to do the actual work. You're not being defensive, or you're not reacting to unforeseen circumstances. You're just focused on the work because there's this person who's like a force field for you, or is taking the hits for you, or creating opportunities for you. So that labor is then funneled ideally to the work itself. And I think that is a valuable function of a mentor. And both of you then have energy that's more well spent. Now, regarding equity, I'm so Pinoy because I have this very naive notion that people of color, that nurses, Pinoys, or those who come from underrepresented groups, we all inherently want to improve the lot of our people. That's my assumption. And so with all this inherent passion that we bring to the work, there's a sense of community and wanting to achieve a sense of positive state of being. And if we should be so lucky to have a mentor, it's that person who extends their social capital for the larger goal, for our shared common goal. And thus, under the biggest umbrella of equity you can think of, it's not just it's not pasan mo ang daigdig or pasan mo ang mundo, but there's two of you who are trying to accomplish the same things. And so it's complementary. And thus, there's a lot more potential for success. But I preface this response with saying that I'm very naive, and I've always been that way. I always just think, the more mentors you have, the more members of the team to make sure that, things do work out. So I don't know, that's just my musings on that. And then lastly, on the diversity issue in academia anyway, I love that Dr. Sprouse was talking about diversity in the clinical setting and leadership. But within academia, one thing we need to acknowledge is that people leave because they're unhappy, or because they're mistreated, or because they're underappreciated, right? Mm-hmm. And great mentors, they will protect us against that kind of treatment. So I think, simply put, people will stay within academia if they have the adequate support system that safeguards them against the onslaught of these abuse or maltreatment. And that's why I'm very grateful for all the mentors that we have here. And final point on this, to what Dr. Ladores had said about visibility and the importance of it. I just have to say too, sometime last year, I was invited to go to UNLV School of Nursing, and got to visit with a couple of folks there and met wonderful faculty. And Dr. Evangelista is part of our roster tonight. And I've never met her prior to that. And I have to say, Dr. Evangelista, I didn't know who you were. But when I realized that you were, occupying a top spot within the school, I was just so enamored by it. And it's that knowledge that, wow, here's this big wig at the School of Nursing with such a robust history of work. And I came away from that visit, thinking about you, and I still constantly think about you. So, if you have this random feeling that someone's watching over you, maybe that's me. And I'm just like fangirling, thinking about all the awesome work that you do in your career. So that your visibility and your example is very inspirational.
Thank you. Beautiful story, Dennis. Now, we Filipinos are known for being happy, being very respectful. We don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to rock the boat. Sigrid, would you please talk about the relationship between mentoring, biases, hiring practices, and career development?
That's a loaded question, Mr. Ramos. I will try my very best to try to hit some of the high points here. I will go back to, again, what I do that occupies most of my days as department chair. And that is really to hire the very best people to work with our students and advance the excellence of my school, my department, and make sure that we sustain that excellence over time. So career development, that is primarily my charge, actually, as department chair. So where I work, I have about 80 full-time faculty members who report to me, and I'm in charge of their professional development and plotting their careers. Essentially, I do their evaluations. I make sure I provide them with guidance and feedback on how they're doing. Not just once a year. It's a constant thing. It's not a one and done annual evaluation. But man, that takes a lot of time to do that intentionally and carefully and thoughtfully. So in my role, I am part of the dean's leadership team. So all the associate deans and the department chairs, we have 2 department chairs at UAB School of Nursing. I'm part of that team and certainly part of our search committee. And that is an important responsibility. Our faculty search council are required, all the members are required to complete training to make sure that as we go through an interview process for a faculty candidate, that we are equipped to identify and hopefully prevent biases in, being introduced in how we evaluate and potentially hire or not hire certain faculty members. So it's a requirement that we all must go through training to combat any implicit biases. We also have a position in our school that's the Associate Dean for DEI, who also serves as an equity advisor. So she is present in all of our search council meetings, in all of our interviews. And while she does not necessarily ask questions from our interview guide, she is there monitoring everything and how we do things. And then we debrief after each of the faculty candidate interviews. So many of you may know this and have this kind of policy or procedure in place. But for those who don't, this may be something that you can bring up in your institution and question whether this actually is being implemented and how they're doing it, to make sure that what you are doing is really abiding by the principles of DEI and belongingness and social justice. I just want to end with the fact that this webinar itself is key to making sure that we elevate our excellence and how we think about our career development and identifying how we can combat biases that is unfortunately present in all of our different workplace settings. So thank you again for the leadership of PNAA and for P3 in putting this event together.
Thank you, Sigrid. Let me turn on to Dr. Sprouse, and I'd like you to talk about tools that mentors and mentees share to promote equity and inclusion in their professions.
Now, great questions. I actually am sitting in here and listening to all of the panelists talking about the things that they've done, and I'm just in awe. I'm in awe. And so I like to sit here and listen, but yes, I'm going to answer your question, Manny. So there are many tools that are available in mentorship, right, to promote diversity, inclusiveness. For one, AACN has promoted their tool as far as how do you apply critical thinking and also integrate diversity, inclusiveness in that. But I always believe, and coming from all the things that I've learned throughout the years and for my mentors, is that communication skills is the #1 tool to actually be a good mentee and a good mentor. And what does that look like in our nursing profession, especially in the hospital setting? I work so hard in listening skills. That is key. Listen, listen, listen. I used to talk a lot. I still talk a lot. But over time, I've learned to not say if there's nothing to say or nothing to add. And that's so hard when you're teaching others and also being a mentor, because you want to be able to impart what you're trying for them to learn. But in the scheme of it, in diversity and inclusiveness, when you have the ability to listen and step back, it actually allows and promotes belongingness and a safe environment for anyone to actually speak up. And when you talk about DEIBSJ, it really is about feeling safe in the environment that you're in. The other thing is that how you say it. You have to be very careful on how you deliver your words. In an organizational leadership, in a hospital setting, especially when you are in a position of influence, every word that you say is dissected. And so it's very important that before you say something, before you put it in an email or text, you have actually scoured every part of that and be very thoughtful and intentional. And that's the kind of stuff that you need to impart to your mentees. The other piece is mastering crucial conversation. You have to be able, again, to say what is politically correct in an environment where it is politically correct, right? I know I remembered what Dennis said yesterday and said, Mila, you are so politically correct when you say things. I actually have honed myself into that because it is so important, right? You have an audience that always is going to cling to your words. The other piece that I always tell my team, the mentors and the mentees, is that when you're dealing with your staff, you have to make them the most important person in that room when you're doing one-to-one conversation. That promotes belongingness. And another thing is that a sense of safety. And finally, you also have to be conscious about generational differences. In my mentorship, I actually ask my team, who are not the baby boomers, to actually include their development as far as going into Netflix and, watch New Amsterdam. You tell me what you've learned from that, what you've learned from the equity and diversity piece, what you do not want to follow, and how you're going to adapt that in your dealings with others. So a lot of the things that we do, promoting mentees and being a mentor, is really about the communication skills and how you're interacting with others. And that's how I actually use as far as one of my biggest tools to actually impart to others. So yes, very, very interesting journey.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sprouse. Now let me turn to Dr. Flores. While mentees may have non-Filipino mentors, how is a Filipino-American mentor uniquely positioned to mentor a fellow Filipino-American nurse?
Yeah, I think at first glance, this might seem obvious, and I'll be stating what I think are obvious reasons. And while, we can't guarantee this for everyone, if it so happens that there is an availability of a Filipino-American mentor to somebody who's coming up through the ranks, I think that would be great. And so, there are a couple of intrinsic factors here that make this a potential recipe for success, I think. First, there's a lot of shared cultural knowledge that might not need to be explained between two Pinoys. Mm-hmm. That right there saves energy. And so the effort that one typically saves up to explain nuances, it can be saved for the actual work at hand. And I think to extend this benefit, the shared background can facilitate the formation of enduring bonds. And we've already heard a bunch of stories about these enduring bonds that people have had with their Filipino-American mentors. Now, secondly, I think having parallel backgrounds between mentors and the mentees, it promotes stronger buy-in for members of this dyad. You see, in healthy doses anyway, mentors might feel a sense of personal responsibility to make sure that the mentee succeeds. And then vice versa, the mentees might feel more compelled to deliver on the quality or because of the certain expectation, right? And I think that can work up to a certain degree. Because it's not a random stranger that you're liable to, you're not answering to. There's a little bit more there. Something personal is at stake with this concordance, I feel like. And then third, going back to what I said earlier, and again, forgive me, I feel like I'm very naive, but I don't mind saying that. There's room for substantial overlap between the interests of the mentor and the mentee. And that right there creates synergy in their work, and at least promotes a level of productivity. So in this broad world of hours of nursing, and we've heard folks talking about clinical practice, we've talked organizational leadership, in research, in academia, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think facilitating bonds between people from the same background also fosters creativity during problem solving. And so we want these folks who will say your name when you're not in the room, or who can identify or nudge you to opportunities that you may not have been aware of initially. And then lastly, I think if folks are matching in terms of backgrounds, there's a sense of personal pride in celebrating moments of success, or a sense of community, conversely, if there are challenges at hand. We all buckle down together and have a more intimate sense of problem solving. At least that's from my experience. So I'm going to cap it off on that question with a story from my day today. I'm the faculty advisor from the last 5 years now of the undergrad group called Asian Pacific American Nursing Students Association here at Penn Nursing. And in my inbox today, and I'm not even kidding you, I had 3 emails from 3 Filipino American students at Penn. One is from an undergrad who was giving me an update on a research project that she's working on. One is from a master's student who was telling me an update on a project about COVID-related deaths that are still ongoing among Filipino-American bedside nurses, because I heard about this at the Filipino store in New Jersey this weekend when I went to get some food. So we were like, we have to investigate this, because anecdotally it's still happening. And that's pretty scary, right? And then lastly, I have a pre-doc who was giving me chapter 5 of his dissertation work. And so I'm not saying that I purposefully sought them out, that I only work with Filipino-American nurses, but it just so happened that they also were in the vicinity and things lined up. And it's so much easier work with these 3 different students. Again, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I feel like stars align, and it's just more fulfilling that way.
Great examples, Dr. Flores. Now, let me turn on to Dr. Munoz. I know that there's a big part of the work that you do also, which involves the community. So as a mentor, how would you encourage and support your mentees in developing their skills and abilities to participate in legislative advocacy?
Very hard, very difficult. I have to say that I've been involved in a lot of this type of activities, but from the beginning, I really was not interested in it. And as a nurse academic, I have other things that I've been thinking about. And for me, and for somebody to say, come on, let's go to, the Capitol, the State House, because there's something going on and we have to, I'll say there's so many things that I have to do. But I learned that really participating in legislative activities is very rewarding and very powerful. And let me give you an example. I, as a president of the Ohio Asian American Health Coalition, we have organizations across the entire state, okay, who different interests, but we gather them together once a year to visit the State House and learn about how the whole process is. And we give them training. And we do visits to legislators and to talk to them in our elevator speech, and what our ask is. Okay? Now, recently, what we wanted was to create an Asian commission, okay, to advise the governor on AAPI affairs. So it's not just Filipino. Of course, I invite the Filipino Nurses Association of Central Ohio, and they are represented. And we also have the Ohio Nurses Association Legislation Day. But going back to this creation of a commission, right now, the advisor to the governor is created through executive order. And so we really depend on who the governor is. So we were lobbying we were advocating, we're not doing lobbying, we were advocating for the creation of a commission. Mm-hmm. So we are moving very, very slowly, but we keep doing it because once we have a commission for Asian affairs, then we will be able to really address all the issues, particularly health disparities and all the social determinants of health that's impacting our Asian community, including the Filipino community. So we're doing that very slowly. We're reaching out to legislators, and it's to invite mentees is to ask them to be with you. So I would say, come, there is this event, or be part of the planning. It's exciting. It's exciting. You get to meet these people, and you have a network of people who really can change. And once even those little steps happens, it's so rewarding because we're getting close to that. The other issue is issue of language. We need appropriations for more language, and we all know that from all our areas. But being involved in all of this, not political, but advocacy, really is part of us nurses. It's part of PNAA, right? Yeah. And so when we have mentees who has interest in that, take them and just let them shadow you. In fact, I sometimes would tell my mentee, when I am talking to a legislator, listen. You don't have to speak, but listen. And then we talk about, how did I present the issue that we want? How did I ask? How did I frame it so that's skill development. Mm-hmm. And so those of the mentees who have just an interest in this area, take them under your wings. And even just by your example, your action, there's learning and there's skill development. It's wonderful work.
Thank you, Dr. Munoz. Now, Dr. Sprouse, in clinical practice and organizational leadership, as a mentor, how would you encourage and support your mentees in developing their skills and abilities to participate in legislative advocacy?
Sorry, Manny, this is an excellent question. And thank you, Dr. Munoz, for sharing your perspective on this. This question actually lands to a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, who says, "Be the change you want to see in this world." And my advice has always been, if you want to affect change, be involved, be heard. And when I have new graduates coming into a hospital setting or new leaders, how do I actually get involved into advocacy, into a lot of legislative initiatives? I always say, start small. What does that look like? Get into committees. When you go into committees, you will be able to learn how you navigate conversations, how you actually get your initiatives or your thoughts forward, and then go bigger next time. Then you go into associations, like the Philippine Nurses Association of America or your local chapters, because in there, you will learn how to navigate again conversations and issues and how you can lead initiatives. And then from there, in the hospital setting, shared governance, such as in magnet hospitals, you get involved with shared governance, and you will learn how, again, to navigate, how to actually be successful in getting your initiatives moving. And I remember one nurse that came to me and said, I saw you in LinkedIn. I love your journey. How can you mentor me to actually be the voice of nursing? And I said, come and join us. And then I need something from you. You need to give back as much as we also are supporting you. I put her on committees and then move her into larger committees. And she became a manager, a director, and during legislative advocacy and March, she is actually present in there. And now she's moving into a state level. What a success story. Because again, it's about recognizing that the little things that we do goes into bigger things. You want to change the world, you want to change nursing, you need to have a platform and you need to have that voice loud and clear to everyone that you are advocating for nursing and for the minorities as well. So love this part, because we always are in a position of influence, and we can take that influence to the national level.
Thank you, Dr. Sprouse. Now, we've discussed a lot of great things about mentorship, but let me ask Dr. Flores, are there cautionary measures to think about as a mentee or mentor?
Yeah, I'd like to think that there are. I mean, we've been talking about all the wonderful positive things,
Yes.
but not everything turns out that way all the time, right? And from the couple of experiences I've had as we were preparing for this talk tonight, I thought back about some of the things that made me scared or I'm just happy that I survived it. So I think just broadly, without naming names or without naming institutions, I think a good first cautionary measure might be careful with individuals who are over-promisers. They might spot you during orientation, or they might see you during that first meeting in whatever, the clinical unit or in the school. And they'll take you under their wing, supposedly. They'll promise you the moon, the sun, even tenure. But in reality, you can feel that underneath all that, it's really some folks just wanting to claim credit for your eventual success. And there's always something in interactions with these types of people that just gives you, that warning. I also think back about some folks I've worked with who are micromanagers. They would love to be mentors, but they start off strongly as micromanagers, and I feel like they will stifle your creativity or your voice. And I don't know, I'm just as a gay man, I'm very cautious about people who want to speak for me instead of wanting to amplify my voice. There's a difference there. And so, I'm not the most PC person because I feel like I come from a different background where, things are a little bit more pressing when it comes to issues that not a lot of people might be able to relate to. And that's one of the wonderful things about the PNAA is we're all Pinoys, or we have the similar background, but intersectionality is still something that we consider. We're also moms. We're also other folks. We occupy different other facets of being. I also, I think back to some individuals who are initially very excited and who want to help us out. And then they falter, eventually. They're very late in their responses. There's apology after apology, which is fine because mentors are not paid. This is like, a voluntary gig that they signed up for. But at some point, you realize that, okay, maybe they have a lot of things on their plate, and it might not work out to what I initially thought it would be. So just something to keep in mind with that, and be graceful about it. Just let it fade away as a natural consequence. And then lastly, for mentors, and this is what I keep telling myself, learn to say no, or learn to figure out, okay, I'm overcommitted. I'm working with too many students or too many other junior faculty, and there's no shame in saying not right now. I can't do it right now. I want to be of good service to you when I have more bandwidth for it. So I think that's fine. However, if you have to say no to the non-Pinoys, please. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. LOL.
Great pointers, Dr. Flores. Thank you. Now, we're not done yet, and I know that Susan Repotenda has been patiently looking over the questions you have posted there in the chat box. But before we go there, I would like to ask each of our wonderful panelists to please share to our audience very short sentences, and if you would just pick one thing, what would you like to pass on from your experiences as a mentor or a mentee? And let's start with Dr. Ladores.
Just one? Oh, no.
Or more than one.
Okay. I'm going to speak really fast, though, because I want to put in as much as I can. So,
yes.
Advice, okay? Yeah. Both sides, mentors and mentees, have to be very clear with their expectations, okay? And mentorship is a long-term relationship. So you have to cultivate, trust and respect for each other right off the bat. Establish your norms. You all have to figure out what you're comfortable with, okay, together. As a mentor, we serve many roles, right? It's a catch-all phrase, but a lot of the times we serve as a sage, an accountability manager, a cheerleader, a taskmaster, a role model, a therapist, and sometimes being a stern mother or father. We have to do all those roles, and we navigate through all the different roles, sometimes multiple roles in one 45-minute meeting. And you have to be able to do that as a mentor, and then make sure that you don't crush the other person when you have to put them on a short leash. So I'll stop there because that's more than one, Manny.
Excellent, Dr. Ladores. Dr. Munoz.
Wonderful. Well said, Sigrid. Well said. I want to say that in this panel, I am the only person who's retired, right? So I'm going to add wisdom. Look for a mentor who has wisdom. But as Dr. Ladores said, it's a personal relationship, lifelong, right? But it's extremely rewarding, extremely rewarding. As a mentor, after retired for 12 years, this year's, I've had more mentors than when I was working full time, and I welcome them, and they seek me because of common viewpoints, perspective, experiences. And as I already alluded, I mentor not only Filipino, but of course, Filipino first, right, Dr. Flores? Filipino first. And my success story is my relationship with the past president of the Philippine Nurses Association of Central Ohio, Dr. Christina Garinger. And it's a very special relationship. We've written about it. We talk a lot about it. And we know that this is not only short term, it really is impacting all aspects of our lives for many years. But as a mentor, it's exhilarating, it's so rewarding, and it's so exciting. Now that everyone's talking about it, it really touches me in a very, very special way. More passionate than I have ever been, just listening to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Munoz. Dr. Sprouse.
amazing wisdom from Dr. Ladores and Dr. Munoz, as well as Dr. Flores. Just really privileged to be among the panelists here. A lot of things that have been said, but here's what I will impart to everyone, including myself, all the time. Be unafraid, open to all possibilities, open to collaboration within your organization, as well as continue to introduce yourself to anyone, anywhere, and join associations, because it opens up a lot of possibilities for all of us. And of course, I will have to end with be bold and unstoppable.
Thank you, Dr. Sprouse. Last but not the least, Dr. Dennis Flores.
Thanks again for the invitation. I think just both for mentors and mentees, I'd like to encourage more celebrations, more maximizing reasons to get together and eat together to celebrate small milestones, or I don't know, promotions or certifications, whatever it is, the submission of a manuscript draft, the submission to the IRB of a protocol study. It doesn't, we can't postpone events to get together for the big ones. It's the small milestones along the way that make it bearable and more fun, because we'll lose our mind. And here in the US, it's always about the grind. I want to go back to Pangasinan and just, relax and just enjoy with family. So I think reminding ourselves, just celebrate small things. We don't have to wait for the big things. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Now, we do have time for a few questions. Ms. Susan Repotente, please read the questions from our audience, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of questions. One coming from Joel Clemente from PNA-NT Dallas, Texas. The question is, what advice you can give for power tripping and favoritism in mentoring and organizational leadership in workplace?
Who wants to take that on? Can you repeat it again, Susan?
Question is, what advice you can give for power tripping and favoritism in mentoring and organizational leadership in workplace?
So I'll take that really shortly. Thank you, Susan. That's a very, very important question. I relate to that as lateral bullying and incivility. There is no place for that. And we eat our youngs and we hear that. And as a leader, we should never have that to happen in our organization. And the advice that I will give, and I have given to our staff all the way to the ABS, is escalate immediately. Because if we don't hear it, we will not be able to address it. And that means it includes verbal, written, and also actions. And even just ignoring someone and not including the person in the conversation is power tripping, which to me is bullying.
Thank you, Dr. Sprouse. We do have time for one last question. Susan?
And the last one I have here is from Ida Imperio. And her question is, how would you differentiate mentorship from preceptorship? She comes from a background of being a hospital nurse educator, coordinated a nurse preceptor program where she trained nurses to be preceptors. So her question is, how would you differentiate mentorship from preceptorship?
Dr. Ladores or Dr. Flores? Dr. Ladores.
I can take a stab at it, and then I invite Dr. Flores to also add. They're very distinct. So mentorship, you think about it, it's a long-term relationship. It is beyond the 6-week orientation or preceptor relationship that you develop in providing basic orientation skills, competency to function independently. It's a very different game. I serve multiple roles. I've been preceptor. I've been a coach. Coaching is also a different form of a long-term relationship, working relationship. And certainly in my role now, being one of the more senior, I can't believe I'm saying that, a more senior academic faculty member, I also now function more of a sponsor. So I sponsor people and I bring them forward, and they're short, very specific outcomes that we accomplish when I sponsor somebody. So there are distinct differences, and any one of the panelists here can really provide more definitions and more explanations. But think of mentorship as a long-term relationship that also evolves over time.
Thank you, Dr. Ladores. Dr. Flores.
Yeah, so I think Dr. Ladores answered that quite fabulously. So I want to go back to the other question because I thought it was a little juicier for me. If somebody, Dr. Sprouse gave a fabulous response as well, but I think, for people who go on power trips or who play favoritism, whether it's in a clinical setting or in academia, there's insecurity involved there for that person and them wielding their power to an end that you might not, be in alignment with. So I think just focusing on your work and succeeding is the best kind of revenge for people who try to withhold that privilege from you in unfair ways. I think nothing is more satisfying than to just be quietly achieving, wonderful things to the detriment or to the chagrin of these people who play games when they shouldn't be playing these games. So that's just my thought about that.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. I want to thank Susan Repotente for monitoring our chat box and sharing with us the questions that have been posted by our audience. Let me now turn it to Ms. Cora Robles, who's going to give away prizes for our audiences. Carol?
Hi, let's see here.
And you can show yourself.
So we are going to raffle 5 Amazon gift cards, right, Manny?
Yes. Is it 5? Yes.
Okay.
5. Let's give
Baka
5.
mag-abano tayo dito. Okay, let's go. Number 1. Oh, wow.
Mona
Dr. Mona Gao. Congratulations,
right.
Dr. Gao.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next one. Teresita Remo. Teresita, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you.
All right. Second one. Third. Karen Hall. Karen, are you here? Karen?
Yeah, she's here. She's muted.
She's muted. Okay.
Yeah, but she's here.
She's here. Thank you. Next, fourth one. Rowena Lozano.
Okay, let me check her.
Rowena?
Yep, she's here. She's also muted.
Okay. I'm here. I'm present.
All right.
Hi, Manny.
Hi, Rowena.
Thank you, Rowena. Okay,
Thank
last
you.
one. Last one, and let's see. Marites Calvello. Marites, are you here?
She's here.
All right. That's it.
Thank you so much,
Back
Carol
to you.
Robles.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Before Dr. Jurado gives the the speech, the closing remarks, let me call on Dr. Mary Joyce Ramos to talk about the evaluation for the program. And again, our dear speakers, thank you so much. That was so wonderful spending this discussion with you, but don't go away yet. Here's Dr. Mary Joyce Ramos.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Manny Ramos. And again, thank you for all the speakers. It was wonderful. You are all fabulous. You are all superstars. So you did an amazing job. You always inspire all of us. So just for the evaluation, of course, my partner, Carol Robles, will flash the QR code. And I'm also doing the in the chat box to post the link in case you want it or you prefer it. And we would like to thank the PNA Foundation on behalf of Mr. Pete Calixto, who's with us all the time. He's making sure he's policing it. And we have like 3 objectives for this program. So first, we covered key principles of DEIBSJ and their application in mentoring to support career progression. Second is to identify strategies and approaches to overcome the systemic barriers. And last but not the least is to understand the role of long-term partnerships with professional organizations, colleges, universities, and nonprofits in supporting career advancement. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. Let me call on Dr. Leo Horado to give our closing remarks. Dr. Horado.
Oh, wow. Truly a stupendous set of panel speakers. Somehow it is titillating in a way that they wet our lips for, it's exciting for their exciting presentations. And I'm sure we wanted more of it, but we don't have enough time. Mentoring relationships are powerful, and the process of mentoring and the relationships built over time support a long-lasting commitment to diversity and inclusive behaviors. Somehow, PNAA provided us this platform to support our membership as future leaders to develop their knowledge and skills and to become better able to
You got muted, Dr. Horado. You're muted, Dr. Horado.
All right. I'm not sure why I got muted twice. So by offering guidance and encouragement to our membership, somehow it becomes so enabling for many of our members, and it is really truly helpful for them to become the future leaders of our organization, so they could build even stronger diversity and inclusion within our organization. As I probably have mentioned in the past, that being a member of PNAA pretty early on in the early 90s, it was tough to see or find role models for Pinoys. Very, very, very few doctorally prepared, very accomplished leaders. And I mean, I always say this because attending the National Council of Ethnic Minorities in the 90s, I could count with my fingers who are doctorally prepared. I was so amazed when I met Dr. Iago, who is here. Wow, she's doctorally prepared. How could I be one, type of thing? And now we have so many of us, and especially our panel speakers today, are so accomplished in their own fields, to show us the way, to role model the way. And again, one big thing they talk about is a sponsorship. And if it's one of us here, as leaders, sponsors, sponsorship somehow is showing the way, providing opportunities for others, whether helping them to get a professorship, position, or becoming directors, so now that's a challenge for Dr. Sprouse here. Now she's the chief nurse, he could hire talents and those types of things. And even Dr. Sigrid here can find talents who are Filipinos, which that's what I've done as department head at many different times, to bring Filipinos in who have never taught for the first time and to give them that experience. And that's sponsorship. So that's the challenge for all of us, so that we could build a stronger PNAA, whether sponsorship through the fellow of the American Academy, or through sponsorship to getting grants, and sponsorship to getting starting research, and like Dr. Munoz here, who's leading the Asian Pacific group in Ohio, type of thing. So those are all types of sponsorship, and we should do more of that. And being a mentor and mentee itself is basically 50% is showing up. We need to show up. And going back again to, I was talking about lack of models, role models early on. I came from a lavender graduation a few minutes ago from my university, right before this program. And one of the discussions that was presented was the LGBT community did not have the voice strong enough until such time that role models such as who is this TV show? I'm forgetting her name. TV show, talk show.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Ellen DeGeneres, when she came out in '97, that basically she showed the way. So somehow she basically paved the way for many of the younger individuals to not be afraid to come out, that type of thing. Or the Living Color show that talk about Black Americans, actors and actresses, type of thing. So we could do that too as Filipino Americans, to do more of that, to do more of that. And we need to show up so that others can see that they can also do what we've done. So great presentations. Thank you, speakers. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And obviously, Manny, you basically presided very well. And again, thank you for this program that PNAA has put together. And let's continue to do great things as PNAA. And now that you join us, Dr. Flores, as you may know, all your colleagues here who are presenters are either advisors or past presidents of PNAA. We want to see you more.
Yes, I concur. Thank you very much, Dr. Jurado. That concludes the webinar portion of our P3 tonight. We will now proceed, but before we go there, let's take a community photo, right, of our webinar tonight before we go to our pulong. So everyone, please unmute your cameras, and Carol, our dear Carol, is going to take photos.
Okay, I see all the videos turning on.
Go, put your videos on.
Okay, more's coming up. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, smile. Okay, one more. 1, 2, smile. And we will take the second.
We have 3 pages. 3 pages.
Okay.
3 pages.
One
yeah,
more.
we have about 80 people
earlier.
It's 77 a while ago.
1, 2, smile. Okay, we're good to go.
Thank you so
everyone.
much, and good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And Carol Robles, you are awesome. You are most dependable. Thank you so much. Thank you, speakers, and thank you, participants and guests. Thank you so much. Good night.